Anyway, good morning to happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
I've not seen you this year.
Happy New Year.
I've not seen you this year.
No. Well, I sort of quite far from here, and I don't normally out in the morning, so I couldn't really estimate how long it takes. Yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again. I hope you've been keeping well. Apart from shughuli ya kulinda katiba na Kenya.
Tunajaribu. We shouldn't be doing this, but there you are. This is not what we should be doing. Yeah. Honestly, we have so many other sort of challenges as a country, and especially now, that the last thing we should be doing is having to put those things aside to fight to defend something which really shouldn't require to be defended. Yeah, and those we are defending it from people who are sworn to protect it.
Wow.
You know, they have sworn to protect it, but they are now they are the threats
to the same thing they swore.
So it's quite the same thing they swore to protect. The other thing they want to destroy it, and something which you worked so hard for so long, and which I think everybody appreciates why we needed it. Well, I guess many young people might not actually have lived it. For those of us who have lived the life, live in Kenya before the new constitution, and now are really amazed that there are people who actually think that taking us back in sort of going backwards is actually a good thing.
By the way, ongera kwanza, congratulations for your petition yesterday on the preservation.
Yeah, it's obviously sort of gives us a reason to be hopeful. We think that actually ours and also quite a lot of the other petitions that have been consolidated with our petition have a lot of merit. So we encouraged to see at least the judges, so it fits to grant those conservatory orders, and hopefully we trust that they will be impartial in considering the merits of the cases. We of course apprehensive because we have seen one of the objectives of those people who are assaulting the constitution is to undermine judicial independence. And we are already seeing a very vicious assault on the judiciary over and above sort of the contempt of the courts and court rulings. We are now seeing an assault on the judiciary. So we do hope that pray for our judges that they have the courage of their calling as well as their convictions,
standing for the truth,
and are able to withstand some of the assaults that may be coming their way. We hope there will not be any, but we saw even an assault on the acting Chief Justice the other day. Those are things we thought we had left behind in the 70s and 80s. They were very frequent in the 80s.
Now it's very alive.
Yeah. So you people are relearning our history. Young people, you are relearning our history, and why it is we needed to fight for a new constitution. I think this is the first time in the life of Kenya, because of course, Kenya, when it was established as a colony, the judiciary was not there to serve the people. The judiciary was there to legitimize oppression. I don't know whether many young people actually know that in many places the DC and the judge were the same person.
DC and the judge, district commissioner.
Yes, judges, DCs in colonial Kenya. So there was no judicial independence, and of course that we tried to create an independent judiciary after independendence. Of course, it was not allowed to be independent. You had occasionally courageous judges, one or two chief justices, madam, who are courageous and tried to be independent. But really, since 2010, is the first time in the history of Kenya that we have actually seen the meaning of an independent judiciary. The first time. And you can see that our post-colonial political class in the executive, they don't like it. They don't like it at all. It's amazing how little has changed. The mindset is the same as both the colonial and the post-colonial, and it's amazing. These are young people. They are our peers, but they are
still fighting the same fight.
Absolutely, it's amazing. Sometimes it's exasperating when you look at who it is that you are fighting, and there are people who understand, or you should expect that they understand. But some of them, I look at Uhuru Kenyatta and I ask myself, what century is this man living in? Quite frankly, his mindset, the way he thinks, it's like he never grew out of his father's coat. You know? It's amazing.
I totally agree with you on that one. I've always said this. It's very unfortunate that we have a president who likes throwing tantrums like a kid who's been denied a sweet.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, Baba, you wanted this sweet and I've not given you. Baba, cry, Baba. So he comes and he huffs and he puffs and he blows hot and cold. And then he goes back and sips something and just continues with life like nothing happened. You know, it's
incredible. Just the sort of personality that has unfolded, particularly in the last sort of couple of, maybe I would say, the last several months. You saw the signs before that he's an intolerant person. I don't know how it is in this day and age, and especially how he came to power, that he expected to exercise absolute power. And I remember writing a column in 2014 and pointing out to him, you know, one of the things that the new constitution has done, and the whole change throughout the 90s, and you saw it also happen to Moi, as multi-party took root, you know, more competitive politics, open society, a lot of democratic space, which the new constitution sort of consolidated, is that it changed the character of the presidency and of the kind of leadership and power of the presidency from authority to influence. Really, what you really should be looking at. But and I remember writing and saying, "Today, my friend, you don't have the authority that you think you do." And this thing of trying to exercise authority by force and writing executive orders, many of them unconstitutional, that's the wrong way to go. All you have is really a pulpit. And you better learn how to try and sort of, you have a lot of convening power. But what you use that convening power for is influencing people. Not forcing them or not sort of giving them orders, because you don't have the power to give them orders and they will not obey you. We stopped obeying sort of power a long time ago.
So he has a kanu hangover.
He's a serious kanu hangover. And I think it goes all the way. I think somehow subliminally, Uhuru expected to govern like his father.
Oh, yeah.
Right, maybe he always looked forward to it.
Yeah, I think maybe
so his father and he was like,
in his mind, because he grew up in that court where he saw that everybody around, because his father was a sort of larger than life figure. I think last night or 2 days ago, we sort of had a sort of family gathering of sorts, just one of these social things. And I don't know how the conversation ended up about recollecting the day Kenyatta died, Jomo Kenyatta died, and obviously many of the people, and one of my sort of relatives, he was a journalist, so he was one of the first to know, and he was narrating how he then went to tell he decided to go home up country and tell people, because he got to know very early in the morning. He arrived at home and everybody was going on, and he told people, Kenyatta has died, and they were wailing, and what's going to happen now? And
the village.
Yeah.
People believe there was gonna not be, there was
It's
never
like the
gonna be
world
live.
had ended, I remember it was the first time ever. We were on school holiday. It was August. And I was sitting outside. I remember quite clearly that I was sitting outside reading a book, as you do when you're on school vacation. And my father came home early before lunch, which was, I'd never seen him at home on a work day before 6. And he didn't talk to anybody.
A very sad man.
He was not sad. He was a bit sort of like in shock, and he went into the house and he didn't come out for a while, and he came back, I think, after his mind had calmed down and sort of thought, okay, now something very, very has happened and that kind of thing. So, but that's the point, that was how it was. And so to see, you get the sense, for those of us who, at least, I was young, but old enough to be, I was in secondary school, so you're old enough to sort of recollect those sort of things, that you look at Uhuru and I think this man is trying to be his father, and that seems to be what's driving him. And of course he cannot be. And it's not just now. He started quite early, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown, and it's very unfortunate that he's now sort of put us
flowered
in a situation where we are sort of preoccupied with things that we shouldn't.
Uh-huh.
It's very annoying.
All right. Even with your petition win, I'd really like to get the experience of what it means to push a different narrative in this country, especially that disagrees with what the system wants. What has been the challenge of you compiling this petition and even the whole initiative? What are some of the things, bottlenecks, that you've come through as you deal with this? You've mentioned judiciary and the almost lack of independence thereof. What are the other things that you felt has really crippled your efforts to drive a different conversation?
I guess that's not something easy for me to be able to talk to, because I guess we sort of sit at different points. We've always driven different conversations against the.
So you're used to it. It's a familiar territory.
It's not just familiar territory. It's just what is exasperating is that we believed we had won these battles, at least in terms of winning the battle, in terms of at least the intellectual battle as to what kind of governance we ought to have. Okay, because we went through this, we started with a multi-party. Of course, it was a big battle. Many people had fought for this before us. Then you had this situation in the early 90s where lots of forces, global, local, converged and said, look, one-party states are no longer tenable. And there was quite a fight back, including from KANU, including from people like Mwai Kibaki and others. We then went through that. And then it became quite apparent after our first multi-party elections that there was a lot more than that. And I remember we really started this conversation that we need to overhaul the constitutional infrastructure. Around 1995, I remember, in fact, going to a meeting in 96, a retreat which was organized by Kibudha Kibwana and Willy Mutunga in 1996, and a couple of people. We weren't that many, we were about 7 or 8 people. And we said, look, I think we need to find a way of making the constitutional discourse the next big agenda in the country. And it started like that. And of course, it took a while. In 1997, we had this big bust-up around whether no reforms, no election campaign, focusing particularly on creating a level playing field. But still, the debate around the Constitution was quite highly contested, even after we managed to push and get NAC to run on a platform of of a new constitution within 100 days. By then, there had been a lot of contestations with tribe of in. Moi had tried to take over the process. So it was a highly sort of contested process. And as soon as again, some people started turning around. The very people who had committed, the people around Kibaki, they started turning around and said, no, it's not the constitution. It was Moi who was the problem. Bishuki was one of the big proponents of that. And so there has always been a sort of status quo constituency that believed actually that there was nothing wrong with the political system and the governance system that we have because it favors them. They are products of it. Yeah, they've always been there. So the thing which really they tried when we pushed the thing, we had the bombers process, and what did they do? They pulled the rug from under that. They went to Kilifi, did something which looks similar to what Uhuru and Raila are doing now, and brought out this sort of Kilifi draft, or to call it the Wako draft, which was defeated. And if you look at it, it was really to restore, to create the semblance of a new constitution without it actually changing very much. Okay, and that's why it was rejected. Like devolution, there was a very strong devolution proposals in the Bomas draft, but they went and watered that down completely. There was a sort of proposal, I don't remember many of the other things, but they were really very much along the lines of the things that this BBI is trying to restore. So the thing, then of course it failed. And from there we had all the way to the 2007 election, what happened, the post-election violence. So that is what, then it's the, what do you call it, the agreement that came out of that, the National Accord. The National Accord is the one which made doing a new constitutional imperative. It was not the direct will of those people. So we get a new constitution, but I don't know whether many people recall that, for instance, on the issue of the judiciary and on the issue of reforming the provincial administration, Kibaki started backtracking immediately. He tried to appoint a chief justice, which did not conform with the constitution. And actually, you had a case. People went to court immediately. And so there was quite a few, not too many. I think there were 2 or 3, in fact, constitutional cases between 2010, the promulgation and the election, where already the system, as you might want to view it, for lack of a better word, was already fighting rearguard action. Okay, then you get an election, which you thought the election would now usher in now full implementation of the Constitution. So in a sense, the exasperation on my part, and those of us who are having to go back to the trenches to do this, is that we have to fight this. It's like we have to fight this thing all our lives. Wow. And against fellow Kenyans. Like, what are they protecting? And it just doesn't realize just how entrenched these sort of colonial political class, the privileged class, just how entrenched it is, and that is going to fight progressive change for forever.
By all means.
Yeah, it's by all means. They're not giving up. Even when you see the kind of situation that gave birth to the new constitution and show how this country could actually unravel quite easily, they won't give up. Because that's where they are taking us again. Because if you look at now, we are heading to another election which looks as like it's likely to be as toxic and as divisive as probably 2007.
It could even some people even argue that it could even be worse.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, we hope not, and we hope we can forestall that.
Because I think Kenyans are pressed from all sides. The economy is sitting tough on them. The social fabric has continued to disintegrate. The leadership as well has continued to almost, disintegrate on Kenyans. it could be worse, because the other time probably we are fighting over an election. Today we are fighting over economic crimes that we feel the Wananchi has been taken against, and also the political, alienation that we are seeing in the country. But anyway, that's left to see. Now, the issue of your petition, I would like you to break it down for us. What was it all about? What were the issues that you were raising in your petition? And yesterday's ruling, what does it mean going forward, especially for BBI?
Our petition was filed in September, long before BBI. And it was, although it was informed partly on where BBI was headed, it was predicated on the fact that there have already been quite a lot of attempts to change fairly fundamental provisions of the Constitution. I don't remember the exact number, but we listed in the petition, I think 13 or 14. Some of them bills were alive in Parliament, which were trying to change fairly fundamental things. And it goes back to the thing that, look, there are some assumptions that by the time the country goes through such a process, and the constitution-making process was very elaborate, that certain constitutional norms are taking root. Yeah, you don't expect to sort of pass a constitution, to go through a kind of process, agree on fundamentals of rule of law and democracy, separation of powers, independence of judiciary, and all of that, really the fundamental tenets of constitution, of democratic constitutionalism. And then shortly thereafter, you see people trying to pull to sort of claw back. So there's been a lot of attempt to claw back. You saw some proposed security laws, which were really very serious clawback on the Bill of Rights. Okay, so it's something we've sort of been deliberating and said, look, now what we are seeing coming is almost a full-scale assault on things that were already going. So what we then put the petition is to expand our constitutional jurisprudence by saying, asking the court to adopt something called a basic structure principle of the Constitution, that there are some aspects of the Constitution that cannot be changed. You cannot by amendment. Okay, because an amendment suggests a small change, an improvement, which is progressive, small, maybe to get out of things which are changing and that kind of thing. Amendment cannot use to change the basic structure of the Constitution. Some very fundamental things. The other principle which is in it is what you call a principle of unconstitutional constitutional amendments, that even process matters. The process by which the Constitution is changed has to have legitimacy, yeah, and has to conform to certain norms about sovereignty of the people and that kind of thing. It's a bit of so to give an illustration, I'll give an illustration which is not Kenyan. I don't know whether you're familiar with this history. A couple of years ago, quite a while back, Algeria is an Islamic country, but with a secular constitution. Okay, many Islamic countries have theocratic constitutions. Algeria, because of its colonial history, has a secular constitution. So a couple of years ago, an Islamic party, during this rise of Islamic parties and kind of politics, an Islamic party ran on elections in Algeria on a platform of installing Islamic law, which is basically to abolish the secular constitution and democracy, establish a theocracy. And they actually won the election.
Wow.
But there was a crisis because then the military intervened. Said, look, you cannot use democracy to abolish democracy. There are limits to what you can do.
Yeah.
You cannot, that is, so what I said, you cannot change the basic structure of the state using the process that has allowed you to run for election, and then you abolish that process for anybody else. So you use the process to win
breaking
an
the
election.
bridge after you cross.
Yes, you cross the bridge and then you break it. Okay. Let me give you another example, which is Kenyan. We have a provision in the constitution which protects Kafi courts. Okay, for family law of the Islamic community. Now, this agreement was part of the deal that enabled the coastal strip, which was a separate British protectorate, to become part of Kenya. And it was signed between Kenyatta and the Sultan of Zanzibar. Said, okay, we have no problem with this part being integrated with the Kenyan colony at independence, even though it was part of the Sultanate of Zanzibar, on condition that certain sort of Islamic, cultural, blah, 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 are protected. And it's been very contentious. Even when we were doing the new constitutions, there were some sort of Christian type people who said that it should not be there, but at any rate, it got protected. Now, it is not inconceivable that somebody can come and whip up all sorts of religious sentiment and political whatever, and using majority, because Kenya is a majority Christian country, and then have a popular initiative to remove that provision. But in my view, that provision is part of the basic structure, not just of the constitution, but of law, but constitution of Kenya as a country. It was there at the beginning. It was a covenant which was entered to at the beginning. So I would argue that's part of the basic structure of the constitution, that you cannot use majoritarianism to remove. So what we then said, okay, we want the court to asking the court, and this has happened in other countries, this jurisprudence is something which has happened in India, in I think quite several countries, actually, Bangladesh, quite a few other countries, is to establish that if there is a constitutional amendment that is proposed, it will be evaluated on whether that constitutional amendment is an assault on the basic structure of the constitution, of the things that Kenyans have fundamentally agreed are part of our basic governance grid norm, and that somebody cannot just come and whip up political sentiment and have those sort of wished away. You saw Trump trying to abolish aspects of the American Constitution. So it can happen. Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that it's only the people sitting on power who always trying to be mischievous. Before they get there, they are very nice people. We'll give you a new constitution. We will strengthen governance until they get there. That's when they realize now they need to restore the default settings of authority and dictatorship. All right, what does that mean then for BBI going forward? Your petition yesterday.
You see, then what happens is that we filed our petition before BBI. And subsequently, when BBI came about, many other people filed petitions. So of different nature, but related. So what the courts did, the Chief Justice did, as courts will normally do, is to consolidate these petitions and set up one bench. We had requested that we get a 3 or 5 judge bench. We sort of said this, and they said, okay, all these petitions should not consolidate because they're addressing the same matter. The reason why the courts do that, other than efficiency, is also the fact that you do not want related cases on the same matters being heard by different judges at the same time who may make contradictory rulings.
Sure.
Yeah, because these things are
different people have different minds,
and because you said judicial precedent, you ask which of these rulings actually constitutes judicial precedent. So they've consolidated the cases. So now we have 6 petitions being under that petition. What happened yesterday is that one of the petitions, among the petitions, was a request to issue what they call in the court conservatory orders, which is to say that things which jeopardize this the ruling that be given in this petition should be held in abeyance until the ruling is given. So in this case, the thing that could jeopardize the ruling, the effects of the ruling is a referendum. And the basis on which they said at any rate, because quite a lot of public money would be expended in a referendum, and the court feels duty bound to protect public resources, and therefore they said public money should not be spent on a referendum, while there is a court case whose ruling could render what they are trying to do unconstitutional.
Or illegal.
Yeah.
All right. All these, the petitions are under an initiative that you are running, Linda Katiba. Before I throw it to Lucia, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce Linda Katiba initiative. What is it all about? What are their aspirations? And maybe how can Kenyans of goodwill be part of it if they wish to be?
Linda Katiba is, in a way, I already have done that. Because I said, we spent years, and many people spent years, sort of advocating and fighting for and working towards achieving a new constitutional dispensation, which we have now. This constitution has already survived 10 years against the assaults that I talked about. The independent constitution wasn't so lucky. It survived only 1 year, at most. Okay? So, we, I guess, as I said, presumed that having been passed with such a majority, a majority constitution, over 2/3 people voted for it and all of that, you have people who want to protect it. The constitution is supposed to be the fundamental, and we should be fighting our politics on.
But we all have a common ground, which is
we have a common ground, which is the constitution. Okay, but we should now be fighting about policy. How should we do the economy? Should you prioritize this or the other? But there are some basics that, like civil and political rights, like democracy, like free and fair elections, like separation of powers. That there are basic rules of the game on which we are agreed. What we are now learning and what we are seeing with this BI is that the constitutional order is actually contested. There are people, you have heard people argue, say, no, we think democracy is too problematic. Maybe what we need is a benevolent dictatorship. You've heard that?
Yeah.
Okay. There are people who actually think that the judiciary is too activist and it should be controlled by the executive, or at least should be brought to whatever. You have seen an assault on parliament that we now don't know what is opposition and what is government, that these things happen. So we then come to the realization that what should be the basic framework, how do you saying, that on which we are agreed, is actually something which is politically contested. So then we say there gotta then be a political platform of the people who are for the constitution as a political platform, because it's no longer the basic sort of norm we think it is, because we have to fight politically the people who are against the constitution. Yeah? We have people who are making it their politics.
To fight the constitution.
To fight the constitution. So you got to have people who make it their politics to defend the constitution. Yeah? Because they are saying, and you ask yourself, because they are quite clear. If you look at the process in particular that they've gone through, is a very personalized, very partisan process, very exclusionary. Yeah, 2 people decide that they are going to start a constitution. They don't even. I mean, the problem which we had, was a problem of electoral fraud, and it's not new. Yeah. It is simply the problem of incumbents who do not accept that they should leave power by dint of losing an election, or by that power should come from the vote. And it's not new. You saw Jomo Kenyatta, who was an executive president, never faced voters. Because in the first election, it was under a parliamentary system. Kanu won sort of the parliamentary system. He became prime minister as leader of Kanu, and thereafter changed the constitution to a presidential system, but never faced a competitive election until he died. Moi took over. Took from there. He went one further. They created a de jure one-party state, so they eliminated competition. In 1992, we brought back multi-party. Moi, the system, you could see, they fought their way and said, okay, Moi has to start anew, whatever, of 2 terms. And you see, this is a problem. Since then, you see, it is a mid-term election problem. First, Moi, okay, a problem, then 97, then 2002, when he was unable to, there was a few attempts to change the constitution, they didn't work, to remove the term limit. 2002, when it was end of term, that was the election. We elect Kibaki, who people say is a gentleman. You know, he cannot do these things, not like Moi. 1997, they decide, no, Kibaki cannot leave. By dint of losing an election, he gets sworn in at night. They do all those sort of crazy Tharaka-Nithi things. And he refuses to leave. And we end up with this situation. End of term, he accepts and he leaves, and we have a peaceful election. Uhuru comes into power. Mid-term, same problem. Okay? But now we have a situation where, from the look of things, you wonder, why is Uhuru campaigning? That in fact, I said this, so Uhuru seems to have decided, let's get rid of the system altogether and find a way of staying in power. Because my conviction is that this really is no different. What we are seeing as BBI and this assault on the constitution is no different from what we are seeing in Uganda, what we are different from what we are seeing in Tanzania. I think these despots have now decided to stop pretenses that they are observing this democratic sort of ritual. They have decided they can dispense with it. And they're really trying to restore what one scholar called electoral authoritarianism. This is because nowadays they cannot do military coups or one-party states. So what they've learned to do now is to have a dictatorship, but which has democratic rituals. Yeah, you have
a soft dictatorship.
It's not soft. Museveni's is not soft. What it means is that you have reached this ritual where election results are predetermined. As opposition, you are supposed to participate and accept to lose so that you can give it legitimacy. So you have to run, and then they give you 30% or 35%, and you accept.
Unless they've given you something.
Yes, and you accept so that they need people pretending to be opposition.
Yeah. But in reality, they are not.
But in reality, they are in control of everything. And I think that is the system that...
That's a new strategy now.
That's the new strategy. That's what he wants to do. We don't know what role he wants to play in that new system, but he wants to play a role. He wants to restore a dictatorship which has a facade of democracy.
So we have not yet seen the hand of Uhuru or the last of...
No. We will see. We will not let him succeed. But when you look at, you ask yourself, why is a president who should be retiring campaigning? Why is he competing with the people who are the ones who should be campaigning, who should be
running for office?
Who are running for office. He's not running for office. Why is he out there? He should be taking a backseat and let them sort of compete. No, but he's actually the most active. Okay, so clearly he does not intend to go anywhere. If you look at what has happened to BBI, It started by looking like it was a Trojan horse for Raila. But it has, over time, been pulled back. You can see it's been pulled back. And if you look at it, it is now a Uhuru project. Raila is just somebody who I think finds himself stuck in there. And he doesn't know. I think he's just trying to sort of save face or something. I don't know why he's staying. Obviously, probably because he's trying to find how he thinks he can still maneuver. I think he got himself trapped in there.
Natumia tu line ya Safaricom kwa sababu ya M-Pesa.
Yeah, something like that. So the point is, back to Linda Katiba. It is a call to arms, so to speak, politically, because we are telling Kenyans that you now, younger generation, you had assumed that we fought for these things, we have established democracy, we have opened political space. Yours now is to enjoy the fruits of this new dispensation. And in a way, Linda Katiba, I should tell you now, it doesn't look that way. You also looks like you are going to have to fight. You are going to have to fight to protect your freedoms, to prevent your freedoms, political freedoms from taken away, to make the vote count, because the ultimate objective of this thing is to make the vote not count. That is the biggest problem with our politics. It is not constitution. They have conflated all these things. But the thing they do not want is power which is exercised by the people. They want power which they exercise themselves without any unfettered discretion.
Yeah, the source and the hand.
Yeah. The idea that that people the vote, either through the vote and also in between, that you see the things which they really annoy them, the requirement that people have to participate in policy processes, all the things that actually put power in the hands of the people. Those are the things they don't want.
Yeah.
They want absolute power. And so this contest between rulers who want absolute power and people demanding that they exercise their power and their sovereignty, that contest looks like it's far from over. Right. And therefore, Linda Katiba is a platform for telling people this contest is not over. All of you now have to get into the trenches. Those of you who want to enjoy political rights, civil liberties, and have a say in how the country progresses. This is you have to join in this fight. Yeah, you're gonna have to earn it. Yeah, right? You're gonna have to work for it. Yeah.
Before I roll it over again, Lucia, maybe I'll give you an opportunity to chime in.
Yeah. So I hear you. Thank you so much for the work that Linda Katiba is doing. We really appreciate the effort. I mean, people have to come out and do something. You cannot just sit in a corner somewhere complaining about things. So that's a very proactive move that Linda Katiba has taken. Now, as you sip water, the president has said in the past that he will revisit the judiciary. We know there's been a tussle where he has refused to appoint these 41 judges. Mm-hmm. I'm told there are now 40.
40. One passed on here.
Oh my God, one had to die. In this country, someone always has to die for things to happen. But you see, even that still hasn't happened. Here's the thing. He stands and he says he's on the front line of the war against corruption, yet he's weakening the institution that is supposed to take care of that. So many court orders have been given that this government has ignored. I think someone did a sum on Twitter, I can't quite remember, and they said since 2014, this government has ignored almost 530-something court orders. Now, the court order that has been given to Linda Katiba, how are we sure? Because now reggae is supposed to stop. These super spreader events that are happening are not supposed to be happening anymore. It's supposed to, everything BBI is supposed to come to a halt with this court order. But they really don't even seem like it's, unajua senye, you're doing something and a fly just comes and you whisk it off. It looks like the government does that a lot with court orders. So what happens now?